Hello everybody, this is Kyrix with more This Week in Kyrix. This is Wednesday, December 23rd, 2020. Happy birthday to me. I am now 38. And, it's been a relatively busy but uneventful week, actually. A lot of my now normal shift of 7 to 4, which I'm normally pretty cool with, but something happened. I don't know if I mentioned this in the previous one. My bike broke. Yay. My bearings have been on the fritz for a while. Basically, that's actually what made the bike need repairs in the first damn place, was the bearings. That is the thing I wreck the fastest on a bike, is the fucking bearings. So, bearings broke on the bike. I got it fixed, got it back, and within a month they were wobbling again. And my choices were try and take it back, knowing that it took like a month just to get the part last time, or ride it out. And I'm thinking, well, I'll ride it out. What else can I do? So for several months I rode it out, and then I want to say like Saturday or some shit, I was riding the bike, and there is this turn at the edge of my street where, depending on where the light's going, I'll go across one way or the other because I need to go diagonally at some point. So I either take a left turn to go down the street that way, or I'll just go straight and cross the street and then take the left. And the light was going so that I'd have to go straight, and there were two people near the ramp that would let me down. So I'm like, fuck it, this bike's pretty tough, I will just go down the curb and just take that hit. I took that hit, and my bearings finally said, fuck it, we're done. And that was that. I had to walk home for about 10 minutes and then get an Uber to work. And I went from having about $100 extra to work with to having just enough money to get to work. So that's fun. And I'll briefly comment on the video here. This is me thinking that these were basalt and they turned out to be granite, so it was kind of a waste of my time. Anyway, back to that. I've been taking Ubers, for the most part, to work or from work. Getting rides where I could. I don't think I ever had a day where I took an Uber to and from, though, which is good, because that would be double expensive. I worked yesterday, let's say the 22nd, Tuesday, which is unusual. I don't really work Tuesdays that often. If I have a Wednesday off, I usually have the Tuesday as well. Or I'll have Saturday off. In this case, I'm off Friday because Christmas, and thankfully, I'm only off those days, so that I have 5 days this week plus PTO for Christmas. I'm only going to have, let me take a taste here. Look at my schedule. Not for schedule reasons, it lists my PTO. Had to use a half hour of it. It pisses me off, but whatever. Give me just a second while this loads up. And yes, I've had that song stuck in my head all fucking day. And there's a reason for it. It just pops in there every now and then. About 2.5 hours. I'd have 3 hours normally. So basically I'm going to have 2.5 hours of overtime this week. But, so Tuesday I'm like, you know, I don't know if my aunt is doing any kind of cake for me for my birthday, because usually she does. And I called her to double check, and I'm like, because if you weren't, I'm gonna buy a cookie. You know, one of those cookie cakes? I've been craving one for the past couple days, and I bought it, brought it home, hid it under my backpack, because roommate. And, ate quite a bit of it today. I saved it for today, because it's my birthday. No real ceremony to it, anything. Didn't sing, didn't put candles in it, didn't buy candles for it. I just cut up my cookie and ate it. Went to Cece's Pizza, because I'm like, wait a second, do I have a freebie? And turns out, yes, I did. I had a free buffet on my birthday, which is cool. And I was going to save it for the 26th, because it's good all month. I'm like, you know what? No, I'm going to go today. I'm hungry. I didn't buy any food, and I have $4 in the bank, so I'm not getting any food today. So I hopped a bus, and I called my aunt, and basically got her to agree to pick me up, because she had to come anyway to give me birthday and Christmas money. So, she was my ride home. Went out, ate CC's for about an hour and a half or so. I'm still nice and full. It was great. Came home, did stuff, you know, just usual Kyrix stuff, watching YouTube, hanging with the pets. Napped. I'm actually supposed to be asleep right now, but I just took like a 3-hour nap, so I can shrug it off for a little while. And I am looking into, on Vudu specifically, finding a way to get downloadable digital downloads of movies. Sorry, the headphone fell off my head. I had to lean over to grab some cat food for the girls, and fell right over. Oh. Okay, so what I'm looking at here is basically what the fuck's the word? Hi, Betsy. What are you over here for? There's nothing for you, Maya. That was cat food, not dog food. I know it's the same size bag, but it's not for you, and you don't eat your dog food anyway. God, the whole reason to do this is so I don't get sidetracked, and I fucking got sidetracked. Anyway, oh yeah, looking for digital downloads for videos, specifically the Star Wars videos when I get them. This matters because I actually have several channels, but I have one in particular I'm going to start uploading on called Star Wars for Casuals. That is Star Wars 4 IV, as in Episode 4, Roman numeral 4, Casuals. And I got real pissed at myself when I realized that I, in fact, have a pun in my name. That being, you type out Star Wars for Casuals, then you make it Star Wars 4 FOR Casuals. And you do the initials SW4C. Type in 4 as in FOR, C CE, Force. That kind of annoys the shit out of me. Not that I'm normally above puns, but just the fact that one snuck under the radar for so long and I noticed it like 3 days ago. I wouldn't have minded if I'd noticed it. Or did it on purpose, but it's just kind of there. But the point of Star Wars for Casuals is twofold. It is to educate casual viewers, genuine casual viewers, who just, you know, they just watch a Star Wars movie here and there. It's not a big deal in their lives. They don't want to make it like a descent into nerddom. They just, hey, I want to watch a movie with space wizards and laser swords. I can get that. But basically, they might want to know things, and that's what the channel's there for. I tell them the things they want to know. And it's also a slap in the face to the type of casuals that I've referred to as the movie casuals that I now call Imperial casuals, who think they know about the series and know nothing about the series and perpetuate false information at all times. And this video is ambitious, and it is going to set the stage for the whole channel. Basically, this thing lets you know right off the bat where the fuck I stand. And I'm going to spoil it now. The first video is, well, the first content video. There are going to be a couple other videos of me describing the channel, etc. The first big video, the first real video, is basically The Empire Strikes Back is hot garbage in a wet bag, and here's why. And I absolutely believe that. A lot of Star Wars fans are probably going to think, like, he's kidding or he's trolling. No, I'm not. I'm dead fucking serious. That movie is absolute garbage. It is a travesty to the franchise. And it has gone unexamined for too fucking long. Because there's a lot of people in the Star Wars fandom that don't want to... They'll pick the shit out of everything. Like, they will shred the prequels, they'll shred the sequels, they'll go after Star Wars, they'll go after Return, but they won't touch Empire. And I actually got on Discord with a friend of mine last night, because I told him this, and he's like, okay, I want to hear this. because I had mentioned that I had been running through the thing in my head, because there were a couple things I'd figured out, like, oh my god, this is horrible, this is horrible, this is horrible. Just like 3 or 4 major scenes I was going to do a video on. You know, like the Han Solo thing. Basically anything Han Solo does in that movie is a fucking retcon. And I figured that was the extent of it. So I'm like, well, it's not bad. It's not that bad. There's plenty of stuff in this movie that's fine. And for whatever reason, well, I know what the reason is. Reason is because I've got 8 fucking hours and walk 30 fucking kilometers a day with nothing to do besides that. And my mind needs something to focus on. So focus on this. I started running through the movie in my head and realized, oh my god, this thing is a shit show from the very first scene to the very last scene. Because the very first scene is them launching probe droids. And I realized, why the fuck are they launching single droids when all you have to do is have this thing hit too hard on the landing and break its transceiver, and suddenly you don't know where the rebels are. You know? And it just kind of got worse from there. I told my friend, he's like, well, you can't have found that much wrong with it. I'm like, dude, I have gone through the movie from start to finish in my head. I'm at the Battle of Hoth, and I already have about an hour and a half's worth of material. He's like, okay, I want to hear this. And so I basically got on Discord with him and told him, okay, pick a scene. And proceeded to, every time he'd mention a scene, show him, yeah, this is where they fucked up. This is what they did wrong. And it's just... And I figured out why the fandom is the way it is, and it's because of this movie. And I figured out why I'm not that way, and it's because of how I saw the movies. By the way, shout out to that monkey over there that stabbed that saber cat in the back. You just barely see where he is. He's in the upper right corner, hidden in the grass. If you rewind a little bit, you'll just suddenly see this saber tooth just fly into the air as he gets stabbed by a spear. So that monkey doesn't have a fern, unfortunately. But anyway, it works like this with Star Wars. I saw Star Wars as Episode 6, Episode 4, and Episode 5 in that order, because Return of the Jedi is what I originally found. I found it as a book, and then I'm chasing this cat, trying to get him. And then I found out it was a movie and wanted to see it, and then I found out it was related to Star Wars, so I wanted to see that. Then I eventually found fits between them, so I wanted to see that. And even as a kid, while I did enjoy it, I'm thinking, there's something off about this movie. It doesn't fit. And it was years later that I realized, yeah, it really doesn't fit. It's not Star Wars. It's not anything like any of the other movies. You know? And the funny thing is, the closest movie like it we have is The Last Jedi, and the fans fucking hate that movie. So, I likened it to the show Scrubs. I described it to my friend. I'm like, hey, have you ever seen Scrubs? For those of you who haven't, Scrubs is a medical comedy with elements of drama. It's got some really good drama in it. I mean, there are scenes that you watch this thing and you will genuinely cry your fucking eyes out. It is a really well done show. For the most part, every show has its flops, its bad episodes, etc. And Scrubs is no different. But anyway, I said, imagine you want to watch Scrubs, and no one's really described it. You just hear that it's a show about doctors. You see the pilot, etc. And then your very next episode is My Lunch. For those who don't know, My Lunch is an episode where Dr. Cox and JD, you know, JD being the main character and Dr. Cox being his sort of mentor figure, have to deal with all these patients who are just dying from failing organs. And they're trying to find a donor. Well, they're trying to keep these people alive while they get a donor. And JD's just absolutely falling apart because it's such a bad, shitty situation to be in. And Dr. Cox bites the bullet because he knows he's JD's mentor, and it kind of irks the shit out of him. You know, because on the one hand, he genuinely respects the kid, but he is so emotionally repressed that he cannot do. You know what I mean? He just can't do. And he bites the bullet and basically says, "Hey JD, let's go have lunch." You know. And they run into a patient that they had dealt with before from a previous episode, and she just kind of annoyed the shit out of them. They brushed her off, and then a couple days later they found out she died, and they thought it was an overdose. Well, she was an organ donor. They put her organs in all their patients, which I don't think they can technically do. I think there's a list for that, but let's run with it. And it turns out she didn't die of an overdose, she died of rabies, and one by one all the patients die, including one that Dr. Cox had been friends with for a while now, who also wasn't in critical condition before the transplant. And that actually comes up where after they have the first 4 people die, Dr. Cox and JD are in the break room together, and Dr. Cox is taking this hard because he okayed the transfer, and JD basically tells him, "Dude, these people didn't have time to wait for organs. You did the right thing. You made the right call. You couldn't have known." You know? And he almost pulls him out of it, and then they get the last call for Dr. Cox's friend, and he doesn't make it either. And Dr. Cox literally has a breakdown in the room where he's just kicking and throwing equipment, you know? And JD tries to stop him, basically saying, "It's like you told me, if you start blaming yourself, you can't come back from that." And he's like, "Yeah, you're right." And he just walks out. And it's a fantastically emotional episode. And it's actually followed by another episode, My Fallen Idol, where they have to get him out of that slump he's fallen into. And if those are your first 2 episodes of Scrubs, My Lunch and My Fallen Idol, after the pilot, it is very easy for you to get the picture that this is some hard-hitting medical drama. And then you watch let's say your next episode is My Musical, which has this woman who's on the verge of an aneurysm, and it's causing auditory hallucinations where she hears everyone singing. So every time she's in the scene, the entire cast breaks out into song, you know. And it's a very good episode, very in line with Scrubs, but it's also goofy as shit. And if that's your second episode after My Lunch, you're gonna fucking hate it. Because you're gonna think, "Dude, this doesn't belong in my hard-hitting medical drama." Well, you're not watching a hard-hitting medical drama. Turns out, when you look at the series as a whole, My Lunch is an outlier. It's a great outlier, but it is not what the show is about. My Musical falls a lot more in line with what Scrubs is about. And that's how Star Wars works. When you watch Star Wars, and then you watch Empire, and that's all you see, you can make the leap from Star Wars to Empire. But the more Star Wars you see, the more you realize Empire is the oddball of the family, and it just doesn't fit with the rest. And that's the problem, is these people saw Empire and for whatever reason decided it was the best of the series. So they want Star Wars to be more like Empire. And it's just not. And it was never meant to be. And that's the problem. So that's why when everyone has a new Star Wars coming out, they're thinking, okay, maybe this is the time we finally get the Empire Strikes Back. And no, because it's not supposed to be. You know? And you just get more Star Wars, and they just get more pissed. Because they don't like Star Wars, they like Empire. And if they realize that and acknowledge that, that would be fine. But they don't. And that causes problems, because then they take this misinformation and spread it to others, like, oh, well, this isn't Star Wars. Yeah, it is. It really fucking is. So, basically, the intent is to take every single Star Wars movie, including Rogue One and Solo, and possibly just for fun, if I can find digital versions of them, the Ewok movies. I just really want them. I don't know if they'll ever make an appearance on the channel. But I do consider them Star Wars movies, despite being wholly divorced from the rest of the content. But I want to take these, and with the exception of A New Hope, do breakdowns of basically what's wrong. Kind of like how Cinema Sins has its everything wrong with, you know, this movie or that movie, except I'm not doing it as a satirical thing or saying it's satire when it isn't, you know. I'm flat out critiquing these motherfuckers. And you may have noticed, except for Episode 4, well, why does Episode 4 get a pass? Because Episode 4 set the standard, and I'm comparing all of these to how they deviate from Episode 4 and the other movies. And you really can't do that with Episode 4 if it was the first movie, and thus set all the criteria. You know what I mean? So, I'm probably going to have to figure out something different for Episode 4. I've been running through the movie in my head, and basically the only thing I can think to do with it is to point out stuff that's happened in other portions of the canon. You know? Because, when all's said and done, Episode 4 is still a very good movie. I mean, it has its issues. It's, to me, painfully obvious that a lot of these actors were early in their career. Because, hey, don't do that. Because don't get me wrong, I love Mark Hamill, I like Carrie Fisher. I've really only ever seen Harrison Ford in Star Wars, and as we're about to discuss, I'm not impressed with the guy's work in Star Wars. But apparently in other stuff he's fantastic. And again, this was still early in his career too. I think that if you were to recast Star Wars with everyone... If you were to take, obviously you'd have to take Carrie before she died, but if you were to take all of them now, and take their mind and put them in the body of themselves in their younger years, I think Star Wars would have been 100 times better because they would know a lot more about how acting works. And by the way, this, flashing back to the thing, you're going to see me chase this snake for a while, and then I lose him in the grass and decide it's the meat I'd get from him just isn't worth hunting him down. I mean, you wouldn't think you could lose a 30-foot snake like this, but I fucking managed it. But anyway, and yes, I'm going to do it to the sequels too, but I'm going to start on the original trilogy because it's the one that gets all the love. Everyone picks apart the prequels, everyone picks apart the sequels, nobody touches the sacred trilogy, as I call it. And I call it that mockingly because that's how the fandom treats it. This is the sacred trilogy. No one badmouths the sacred trilogy. Bitch, get ready. You know? I'm just sick of the double standard because, I'm sorry, everything they say about the sequels applies just as hard to the original trilogy. Everything they've said about the sequels as a whole applies specifically to Empire. And it feels weird to be doing that in a This Week in Kyrix video, especially one that's my birthday, but fuck it, this is my present to myself. I'm gonna bitch about Empire, because I hate it. And I do. I mean, I do like all the Star Wars movies, but I also genuinely hate this one. I'll watch it, but I'm... Oh boy, I hate this fucking movie so much. And I'll admit, part of it's a schadenfreude thing, where the fans have been like, oh, well, you know, Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith and all that suck. And I'm like, really? Let's take a look at your favorite movie. And that is how it started. The reason I am so versed in how shitty the original trilogy are is because I spent 10 years arguing about the prequels. And a big reason I do the channel the way I'm doing the channel, and anyone who's seen me in a Star Wars video's comment section knows I go fucking hard on your ass. And the reason for this, and I've actually explained this, is because even though I don't like the sequels, and I really don't, I really just like Rise of Skywalker. I'm okay with Force Awakens. Last Jedi's horrible. You know? It's horrible for entirely different reasons than people think. But it's horrible. And, but I defend them because people are bad-mouthing them for reasons that don't really apply. They're like, this isn't canon. Yes, it is. This isn't how this works. That's exactly how that works. She's a Mary Sue. She's not a Mary Sue. You know, shit like that. And the reason I do this is because I remember the prequel era. I remember that I'm this one guy. And everyone in the Star Wars fandom is ragging on the prequels hard to the point where it literally is considered a given that, oh, the prequels, obviously the prequels suck. And I've had this conversation with people where they're like, well, obviously Empire's the best, or obviously the prequels suck. And I absolutely blow their minds by asking the question, why is that obvious? Because I don't see it as obvious at all, you know? And they genuinely don't know how to answer because they've basically been programmed to think that the prequels suck and Empire is the best by default. And I love this moment because I had ordered them to all grab sticks before I went after the saber cat, only to have to fight him. Turn around, they've all got their sticks. I'm like, well, shit, now we got to do the meat, you know? But when I was arguing with the prequel haters, nobody was there to really back me up. I mean, every now and then you'd run into one guy who might say something nice, and then they'd chase him off. Well, I had to fight him myself. Fortunately, I'm one of those people who loves to argue. And 99%, maybe 95% of arguments that I'm in, where one person does not physically concede, which usually isn't me unless you can prove me wrong, 95% of arguments I'm in end because the other person gets tired of the fact that I won't go away. You know? They literally are done because they'll post like 3 or 4 lines and I will, if I'm home, I will copy-paste everything they said and take it apart word by word. Not word by word, but line by line. Basically debunking everything they fucking said. And I don't just do this with Star Wars, but Star Wars is the most prevalent thing that I do this with. And they just get sick of it. And out of that, the rest of the endings will be whenever we were arguing on doesn't bother to notify me that there was another thing and I just don't follow up on it. Because I'm in a lot of fights. You know, I'm one of those people who at any time is in the midst of 10 different arguments. And across multiple platforms, like I've had some ugly Twitter arguments with theists, actually. Facebook, I'll have arguments about just about any subject under the sun. And YouTube, it's mostly Star Wars. But I will have all these arguments, and if nobody fucking remarks on it, or no, if YouTube doesn't tell me, for example, like I discovered today, because someone commented on a thing basically telling me to fuck off, I went back to that comment, and it was only like 5 comments long, which is rare. Generally, I'm in things that are 60 to 200 comments long. But since it was only like 6, I was able to read them all, and discovered basically that 5 months ago, 2 other people had commented, and YouTube never told me. So because one of the guys basically said, how do you respond so fast? Because you've responded to a lot of stuff I'm in. And I'm like, basically, as long as YouTube informs me, I have my phone, and I can just do it on the phone, you know? And I said, unless it's cases like this where it doesn't tell me, because I noticed this was laid 5 months ago, you know? Yeah, that's how a lot of my arguments go. But anyway, back on track, because I keep having these fucking tangents of mine. I want to be, for the sequel fans, what no one could have been for me in the prequels. I want to be the guy who, when you're sitting there, you're like, I love this movie, and they're like, this movie sucks. I want to be the guy who stands up and says, shut the fuck up, dude. You know? And basically puts them in their place so that these people don't have to. These people should be allowed to just watch their movie and not have to argue for it. And if the fans want to argue, I'll make them fucking argue. You want to argue, let's talk about what a shit show Empire is. And as I told my friend last night, because we dipped into the prequels a bit, and we dipped into my favorite of the OT, which was Return of the Jedi, the fact that I love a movie won't stop me from tearing the shit out of it. Like, I basically said, look, I love Return of the Jedi, but it is home to the worst scene in all of Star Wars, the Jabba's Palace thing. Which, that'll be a video, trust me. But I also pointed out ways to fix things, like the whole prequel thing. And this is some weird AI cock-up where I could not get them to pick the sticks up. The instant I told them to put the sticks down, they all rush up and pick up sticks, and yeah. But anyway, I told them, okay, we're going to do episode 1, right? And I said, I'm gonna fix episode 1 entirely without changing anything. It's like, okay. I'm like, okay, remember the line, Yoda, the Jedi Master who instructed me. That might not be the direct quote, but you know what I'm going for. When Obi-Wan told Luke that Yoda was his former master, and my friend brought up they said, you know, that he instructed the younglings. I'm like, yeah, that's a fucking cop-out, and I don't buy it. I didn't buy it then, I don't buy it now. I'm like, here's how you fix it. You don't have to put Yoda in the movie more than he already is. Because remember, they mentioned that Obi-Wan is old enough for the trials. All you have to do is say Obi-Wan is doing his trials, and that Master Qui-Gon Jinn, one of Yoda's close friends, is overseeing him. That way you still get all these great interactions between Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon, but without ruining continuity. And it's still someone that Obi-Wan would care for, because he's known him his whole life, because he's close to Yoda. You know? And that right there, that one thing fixes a huge continuity snarl. You know? And that fixes its continuity snarl, because it would have been a lot more impressive to Luke to hear that Yoda instructed every single Jedi youth than to hear that he was Obi-Wan's master specifically. You know? Because, I don't know about you, but the guy who taught literally the entire order impresses the shit out of me. So. But yeah, I have to look into it. There's apparently ways, which I assume are legal, to get digital movies off of Vudu. And honestly, I don't think it'll be a problem, because I do own the movies. You know, this isn't like me going onto a torrent site and downloading and pirating the things. I physically own them. Like, and I'm willing to get, like, the Blu-ray digital download copy, which is the same price as just getting the digital download on Vudu, so why the fuck not, right? But I'm gonna get that, and then I'm gonna do, get the digital download, and do my work off it. And if Vudu won't do that, I will find a place that will just flat out give me an MP4. I'd rather do it this way, because this way I can have a physical disc as well. But if I can't, I can't. You know, just do what you gotta do. But yeah, today was nice. It was nice and relaxing. I don't think I played really any video games today. I might have done something. I didn't do anything hard. I didn't go hard into it. I'm actually finishing, at this moment, uploading the last episodes of This Week in Kyrix up to this one. So for the first time since August, I looked. I'm up to date. They're uploading right now. So that's fun. This has actually been bothering me for a while. I did find out that my process of trimming down the files locks them at 480p, and I'm done giving a shit about that. I really am. I'd like for them to be high quality, but for whatever reason, my channel has decided that I'm not allowed to have HD. And I don't mean that literally like, oh, well, this thing won't let me have HD. I mean a case of the world has conspired that I am just going to have shitty quality. You know what I mean? So fuck it. I mean, I could do it. Oh, there's me finding the crock. I mean, I could keep it like the PlayStation recording, like what we've got right here. And honestly, Share Factory might be trimming it down even further. But the problem is these files are goddamn huge, like 3 gigabytes apiece. Like, when I trim them down via my Movie Maker, we are honestly looking at more than a 50% decrease in storage space. And I'm running out of space. You know, like my hard drive's running out of space, my external hard drive's running out of space. I don't really have the money for another external hard drive on top of that. You know, if I had money for more, I'd get one that's just my This Week in Kyrix videos and one that's just RPGs and so on and so forth. I got no problem with that, but I don't have the money for that. So I'm just gonna, rather than have a single video that takes 3 hours to upload because it's, you know, bigger than most movies, or just not have space for shit, I've decided I am just gonna take the dip in quality. Maybe someday, if I get money and can get a better computer, etc., then I will, you know, start pumping out higher quality everything. I can look into programs that'll actually do it in 720 or 1080, you know. I can have a computer that can record it in 720 or 1080. And by the way, if anyone's wondering what I'm doing here, my monkeys are bleeding again, and I've walked so far away from the horsetails, so I'm like, fuck it, we'll just breed, and that's how I'll heal him. It's literally what I'm doing here. I'm like, well, instead of actually taking care of our medical issues, I'll just have a baby. But, and the funny thing is, when I do a generation jump in a couple minutes, we're gonna get nailed by a croc again. So, I really picked the shittiest place to set up our home. I picked it entirely for this clearing, and that was apparently a very bad reason to pick it. Because it's right near where this crocodile nests. Yeah. But yeah, I'm up to date on this weekend. I'm gonna record maybe the footage tomorrow when I get off work, because I get off work at 4 p.m. and then I'm off Christmas and Christmas Eve, or Christmas, and then the day after Christmas. So I'm gonna have basically 3 days off, because left to my own devices, I'll sleep till 4 o'clock anyway. You know what I mean? I'm gonna have time. So, I'm going to record the last episode of This Week in Kyrix, which, this is a 53-week year. 53 Wednesdays. And, then I'm going to record this year in Kyrix's base footage, and then we'll go from there. I haven't decided if I'm going to do 2 hours or 1. I think I'm going to lean towards 1, simply because of how Share Factory works. I was going to do 2 hours and just splice the footage together. And then it occurred to me that I would lose all the flow, because it takes about 20 minutes to save this file when it's done. When I say, okay, I've got this thing edited the way I want, save. It takes like 20 minutes. So in that 20 minutes, I would completely lose the flow of what the fuck I was going on about. Because I can lose the flow of what I'm going on about by seeing a squirrel on camera and remarking on it, and immediately lose everything I was talking about. So having a 20-minute gap in my commentary would just ruin it, so I'm just going to go for the hour. But, yeah. I've already got the first week of January's footage for This Week in Kyrix, the Mountain Blade Warband. I have been playing a lot more of the Forest. It is fun. It's not cross-play, so I need to find people who have it on PS4 to play with. Because that's the thing, I love crafting games, but it's a bitch to find people to play with. And I really do need people to play with, because, as it turns out, I'm an incredibly domestic player. Meaning, that in a crafting game, if I'm allowed to, I will spend all my time crafting things. I will stay at the base and just add. You know, so it is incredibly difficult to get me to go out and gather things. Meaning that my ideal situation with the Forest would be a 3-player setup, where one person would go out ranging and hunting and whatever. Another person would be helping me gather materials, and I would be assembling said materials. You know, I'd love to get to a situation where enough of my friends have PS4s that we can get games of 7 Days to Die and Minecraft and The Forest and whatever other crafting games I have just going. So we can just hang out and game together, because I really am at my best, and this is a realization I've come to in the past 2 years. I am at my best when I play support. You know, everyone wants to start sounding like, oh, I want to be the lead guy. I don't want to be the lead guy. I want to be backup. I'm good at it. I'm really good at it's actually one of my greatest strengths, is the fact that when you're talking about shooters and stuff, I'm the backup guy. Like, I've been playing Dead by Daylight, and I haven't played much Survivors because, well, quite frankly, for whatever reason, whenever I try to play Survivors, we don't have a game to pick up. I don't know if it's because Dead by Daylight just isn't super heavy, or if I'm just not... Yeah, see, I've already got 2 monkeys injured, and we haven't even started yet. And I'm trying desperately to find them before something eats them. But, it might be the fact that the game's just not super active, or maybe I'm just playing at bad times, because I do have crossplay enabled, so I can play with PC people. And I keep burping pizza, which doesn't surprise me when you consider how much I ate. And when I played most recently, right now I'm focusing on one survivor. I'm playing Laurie Strode from Halloween. And this sucks, because I don't know if Dead by Daylight normally has voice, because we don't use voice. But I have taken on the role of decoy, because one of Laurie Strode's abilities is an obsession-based ability. I think most of her abilities are based around obsession, rather. And basically, if the killer has an obsession, it's most likely going to be her, because that's just how she works. Like, she just is geared to be the villain's obsession, the killer's obsession. And so far I have been every time. And... Hey, princess. Over here. And her ability that I have locked in right now, I'll add more later, but the one that I use right now is she can see the killer. If they're looking in each other's direction, she can see the killer. And I don't know if it means that he can see me as well, but I can definitely see him. So I'll hang around with the survivors until I see him, and then I draw him off, and I basically play human bait. And this has worked for me a lot better than any other playstyle. It means that chances are I'm not going to win, but because he spends the whole game chasing me, the others can do stuff. And then you get into other games, especially the asymmetric games, like Predator Hunting Ground, where I play Scout or Support. The Scout, I think, yeah, Scout or Support, where basically I immediately break off from the team. Like, I mud up and run off away from the team. And if there's voice chat, I tell them I'm separating from you guys, here's why. And I know I've pissed off a couple people that weren't on voice because I'm not doing the task, or I'm not with them. And the reason being, because I play the game in single-player mode a lot. And you're probably thinking, single-player? Yeah, you can actually play the game without Predator at all, or without other players even, by setting up a custom game and just not inviting people. And so you have an entire game where the point is just do the objective. You know, fight AI soldiers, do the objective. And it's next to impossible to die in that, you know? And you use it to level up your guns and to level up your guy and all that shit. So if there's a particular gun you want to get good at, or you want to get leveled up to the point where you can get a specific scope or whatever, this is how you do it. You go in there, you use that gun, you get good at using that gun, you figure out all the perks and drawbacks of that gun, etc. And so I'm really familiar with how to do the objectives in each level, and I'm really good at handling enemy soldiers. And all my weapons are silenced, and I mean all of my weapons are silenced. So I'm not going to raise a big fuss. You know, I'm not going to draw the Predator, I'm not going to sound an alarm with the guys, etc. So I run off and do the objective, and then the Predator goes after them. And I'm actually not super great at fighting the Predator most of the time. There have been a couple of cases where... There was one case in particular where the Predator got injured, and I happened to see where he was going, and he stops to heal. And when he heals, he stops. He's utterly helpless. And I was right up his ass, and I just shotgunned the living crap out of him, and he died. And I took him out right then and there. So, that was fun. But I actually play really good support, because if they get taken down by the Predator, I can hit the revive. You know? And while they're fighting the Predator, I'm finishing the mission so that we could just escape if we want to. Then you've got Star Wars, where I play the TIE Reaper or the U-Wing, and I play pure support. I barely ever shoot anything. Or you look at Resident Evil Resistance, where I play Jan, and my whole point is working the cameras and shit. I'm really good at support, and I want to play a team game where I can do that kind of shit. You know, I want to play where I have the option to just sit at home and craft while they go out and mine and shit. And, I just wish I had the community to pull that shit off. You know, I just wish I could say, hey, I want to open up my Discord, and we're gonna have a community game of 7 Days to Die, where get on my PlayStation server, etc. Here's your passcode, or whatever, you know what I mean? Or we're gonna play The Forest, I need 3 people to game with me. I don't see it happening anytime soon, though. I don't really have the engagement level for that. I mean, I have people I'll engage with, but I don't have the dedicated fan base who just wants to game like that. Maybe someday, but not today. I was gonna say something, but I'll save it for this year in Kyrix thing. It's more appropriate for that. But yeah, I'm getting caught up on my videos. I should have done Until Dawn today. I should have finished that off, but I'm probably going to procrastinate and do it tomorrow or the day after. I want to do some recreational gaming in the meantime. I got Zarude from Pokemon Sword. I'm a little pissed that they did the the Pokemon newsletter thing again, because that's a horrible distribution system. Because if you only have... You can only do it once. Like, you only get one code one time. Well, I physically own both games, and I would like to have at least 2 Zarudes, please. And then on top of that, I have 2 profiles between those 2 games, so I could technically own 4 Zarudes. And in the old days of going to GameStop, I could just literally go up there, get like 30 cards of Zarude, and just hand them out to people. The newsletter is a really shitty system, is what I'm saying. But yeah, I've got them. I haven't really done anything with them, and I won't be for a while, because I'm in the midst of other stuff. In the very near future, I have to get back and doing the Crown playthrough, so that I can actually continue the game. But for now, I'm content to fuck around with it. And speaking of content to fuck around, we're almost done here, so gonna have to start wrapping up in the next minute or so. But all in all, it's been a decent week for me. It's been a very busy week. I haven't gotten the sleep that I needed, which is part of why I've slept so much today. But fuck it, it's my birthday. I'm allowed to relax a little bit. I'm kind of just waiting at the clock. I'm sitting like, you should say something. I'm like, I don't have anything to say, though. But, yeah, once I'm done with this, I gotta save this. Hopefully it'll be up today. I mean, I should have did this hours ago, because the footage was there. I should have finished it a while ago, but I didn't. You know me, I procrastinate. Okay, so we're going to call it here. I will see you next time, everyone. Bye-bye.